This is going to be my story and my experience of miscarriages. I've had 3 in total, but today's video I'm going to be talking about the 2 miscarriages I had before I gave birth to Penelope, because in my opinion the miscarriages I had before actually giving birth to Penelope were very different to the miscarriage I had after I'd had my first baby. But we'll go on to that more in the next video. Growing up, I was around lots of babies, lots of children, and I always fantasised about being a mum. Me and my cousin would troll the Argos book, of all things, picking out every single thing that we'd have in our family house, everything that we'd buy for our baby. It's just something I've completely always wanted. When I was in high school, my mum was pregnant and she lost the baby at 18 weeks. He was named Ashley and I was there, and I held him and I touched him, and it was honestly the most magical, saddest, confusing thing I've ever experienced in my whole life, because I was so proud of him and I thought he was beautiful and amazing, and I couldn't believe at 18 weeks I couldn't believe how perfect he was, basically. And that sort of really frightened me, because I thought, he's so perfect, what if this happens to me? What if I have to go through what my mum's going through right now? My mum is heartbroken. Like, I don't think I can cope with that. I was only in high school at the time, but I feel like it just really opened my eyes to the fear of losing children, losing babies, losing pregnancies. And I just had this horrible feeling in my head that it was going to happen to me. That's just always what I felt after experiencing that. So the time came and I met Reese, and we decided pretty soon on that we wanted children. And as naive as I was, I thought it was going to happen like that, and I would get pregnant, deliver, and it would be all amazing and magical. But it wasn't at all. We did get pregnant, however, 1 month into trying. I didn't even have a period before I had to test. But my dad's totally not expecting a positive test. I peed on the stick and I sort of started to hyperventilate because I saw a line. All thoughts of losing the pregnancy were gone. I was just so focused on it being a great time and so positive that everything was going to be fine because we were now pregnant. We told family straight away, pretty much, because we just felt that's what we wanted to do, let everyone know where we were at in our relationship, what we wanted and things like that. So just felt to get it out in the open and let people accept it, sort of thing. Some family were really happy and sort of excited, others were more concerned because it was so early into the relationship, and I completely understand that, but it was a bit deflating and hurtful as well, because obviously you've got this whole attitude that it's going to be great, it's going to be perfect and things like that. A few days later I was getting up for work again, and I sort of woke up and said to Reese, I don't feel pregnant today. I don't feel any symptoms, I don't feel anything. I was like, I just don't feel pregnant today. And he sort of said to me, oh my god, don't be ridiculous, just go to work, it'll be fine. And then we sort of agreed on the way to work that we'd do a test later that day, and it said pregnant. But at the time I didn't realise it was a lot fainter than the first pregnancy test we'd had a week or so before. But at the time I was, I just was naive and I thought, well, it still says pregnant, so it's fine. A few days later after that, I was about 5.5, 6 weeks pregnant. I was at work. I just went to the loo as I would have done, and I remember sitting on the toilet, going to the loo, casually wiping, in a bit of a rush to get back to work, and I saw all this blood on the tissue, and my legs started to shake. I took my knickers off because I'd seen there was lots of blood in them, and I put them in the little sanitary bin in there. Don't know why I did that, but I just did. I didn't know what else to do, so I put them in the sanitary bin in this tiny toilet at work, in the office. It's literally in the office. People that I work with are just outside the door, so it was a really uncomfortable situation. I remember just sitting on the toilet trying to think through what to do next. I couldn't get, there was like a block, like a panic block, where I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to sort this out. I didn't know what to do next. I was sort of just numb and shaking and shocked on the toilet. Anyway, I got myself together, kind of. I managed to pull up my trousers and I sort of ran outside the office, stood outside the office door. I think people knew something was wrong because they did come out after a minute. But I was already on the phone to my mum because she worked in the hospital as well. That's where I work, by the way. And I told her to come to meet me ASAP because I was bleeding. I was obviously sobbing on the phone. I said I want to see my mum, so one of the ladies walked me over to my mum. I was still sort of shaking and just terrified. Got to my mum. She took me to A&E, who referred me over to the early pregnancy clinic, where they did a urine test on me, and they basically dip it in and test the levels of blood in the urine, which came back as a negative pregnancy. So I was brought into a tiny room, given a green slip. Here, unfortunately the pregnancy has come back negative, so you are miscarrying. And I just remember sitting in this tiny room feeling really claustrophobic with Reese and my mum in the room, and just feeling completely overwhelmingly crushed. I sit there a minute, and I was quite calm when she was telling me all this information, but calm because I was numb inside and I wasn't actually sort of listening. I was just looking at the green form saying miscarriage. And as soon as I got out of the room and she left, there was like a ledge on the other side of the corridor, and I just remember leaning over it, my arms sort of folded over like this, and just sobbing, and my knees sort of fell through a bit, just because I was so gutted, because I'd always beat myself up saying, you know, it's going to happen to you, you know, this is something is going to be your future, and for it to confirm it, and I do lose the baby. I lost my pregnancy at 5.5 to 6 weeks. It was just so hard. I'd bonded with the baby. I was so excited. Me and Reese were already joking about names and stuff. Like, it was just really hard. And the miscarriage itself sort of was happening as anyway. I was bleeding. It was a day or so into the bleeding, and I remember sitting on the toilet, and I felt sort of like a release. Not huge, because obviously the pregnancy wasn't too far along, but I just remember feeling a little release, and there was like a little purpley coloured sac, and that's all it was. It was literally no more than that, I would say. The actual baby that was there, it was so tiny, but I definitely knew it was the pregnancy because it was flesh and it wasn't blood. It was definitely flesh, and that's 100% was the pregnancy. So I was quite distraught when that happened. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know whether I should take it out the toilet or what I was supposed to do, but I flushed it, and as soon as I did, I felt like I'd done something really wrong. I don't know, like, it felt wrong to flush away my baby, because to me that's what it was. I had to flush it down in some grotty loo, which kind of broke my heart a bit. And obviously followed by that, there was so much cramping and tons and tons and tons of blood and clots. And I just remember literally laying on the bed, me and Reese laying on his bed, and I was just completely sobbing for probably days, because I was just heartbroken. Thinking back now, I didn't even think about him. I didn't think how upset he was. I was just so completely absorbed in myself and my own grief that I didn't even ask how he felt. I feel kind of crap for that now, because I wasn't there for him, but at the time I couldn't be there for him. He had to be there for me at that time, because I couldn't see anything else but grief. I sort of got up and everything like the next day, and we went to Frost's and took the kids out to see Santa and stuff like that. And it was just like it never happened. But I was so angry and bitter and upset in myself that it sort of shattered our relationship between me and Reese a little bit. I would get so angry and snappy at him. We were arguing a lot, debated finishing the relationship a few times. It was just such a hard time, and like literally I can't tell you how hard we had to fight to stay together. I even remember getting a bit violent at a few times during arguments because I was just so, it was just unhealthy. I was so angry that this was now my world, my being. This is now what I had to live. I had to live through my fear. A little while after, we decided that wasn't going to be it. We were going to try again, and that's what we did. We tried again and we got pregnant pretty much straight away again. This time was really tense. I was really nervous. At work I would sort of run out the room and cry out of fear because I just didn't want this baby to go. I just really wanted it to be our baby this time, and I thought everyone was telling me, everyone around me was saying, we know it's happened once, it's not going to happen again, this won't happen to you again, and it'll be fine, and be positive. And you get pregnant again, you just cannot tell yourself that it's going to be okay because you're just consumed with fear. I had obviously high hopes that it would be okay, and I really did. I really thought, if people are telling me it's going to be okay, it must be okay, right? But we had a holiday literally a few days after we found out we were pregnant. We only told my mum, and that was it. We didn't tell Reese's parents or anyone else because we didn't want the stress of anyone being, you know, quite upset or worried or anything like that about being pregnant again. So we just decided not to say anything to anyone. We went on our holiday. For the first week I was absolutely fine. I so loved the holiday. I loved sunbathing in the sun, knowing that I had this little person growing inside me, and it was honestly the best holiday I've had in ages. For the second week I was confined to the hotel room. I couldn't get out of bed, I couldn't leave the room. Reese had to go and bring me toast and small sort of dry foods because I literally couldn't eat anything else. I couldn't even get out to the restaurant to go and get my own food because I was so sick. And I think we spent the last week of our holiday watching the news, which was pretty depressing in itself because outside was this beautiful place. After we came back from holiday, I started, over the next few weeks, started to develop a bump, and I was so proud of my bump because, I don't know, I just loved the look of being pregnant, and I would sort of take bump pictures and things like that. I had a bump really early, by the way, because I hadn't even been to my 12-week scan yet. So I had a bump pretty early, but as soon as we got the date-in scan through to go and have our little scan and see our baby, it sort of all became really real, and I was just so excited because, I don't know, it was just amazing. We were about 13 weeks pregnant. The day before our dating scan I went to work and was having an okay day, just getting on with it, the computer, and a lady in the office just started to go in on me completely, was completely nasty, and I went home that day and I was in tears, complete tears. I got in straight out the car and went to the loo. And wiped, and there was blood there. I panicked. I pulled my trousers up. I didn't even flush. I sat on the sofa. Reese was still getting out the car, and I just screamed. I screamed and cried for Reese, and he could hear me outside the building. So he came in and I said I was bleeding. He said, right, let's ring your mum, let's find out what to do. Like, it's going to be okay, it's fine, like, don't worry, blah blah, being really supportive. Went to the hospital. We had an examination and they said everything sort of looked fine, everything sort of was sealed and stuff like that. I don't know what the right terms are, but everything was closed and it didn't feel like anything was open for the baby to come out or anything like that. I was told that I would have to wait till the next day for my dating scan because they didn't have any scans available for that day. So I had to go home. Reese had to go to work and leave me that night because he was doing a night and he hadn't told his parents that I was pregnant yet, so he had to go to work. So my mum decided to stay with me that night, so I was on my own, which I really appreciated. And we basically just stayed up most of the night crying and she was saying it was going to be fine and things like that. And I was only bleeding like a tiny amount at this point, but I was just so worried because obviously blood in my eyes was horrific. Next day came, we got up, we went to go to the hospital, didn't really know where we were going, so we ended up at the wrong department, and I was like, ah, someone just see me. And then we went somewhere else and we were also told we were at the wrong place. So at this point I was just starting to cry because I wanted to know what was going on. I was nervous. It was just like a horrible wait. Someone said, come with me, I'll take you to exactly where you need to go. So I thought, brilliant, let's just do this, get it over with. Remember, my mum decided to wait out in the corridor. Me and Reese went into the scan room. I said, I'm really nervous. I was still crying a little bit. And the lady said, it's going to be okay, and put the gel on my stomach. And as soon as I remember, the screen was in front of me, and I laid down, I sort of looked up, and it blinked on, and sort of blinked off again and blinked back on. And in that blink, like, I saw the baby straight away, and I knew that's not what it's supposed to look like. It was way too small. It wasn't the baby shape. It was sort of just like a lump, and it wasn't a baby at 12 weeks, 13 weeks. It was clearly it had died, and the lady sort of just went really quiet, and I knew straight away. I started to cry. She said that the baby looks like it died about 7+ weeks, and I'd gone all that time over those 13 weeks thinking, you know, my bump's growing, you know, I'm gonna feel it kick soon. And I went through 12 weeks of sickness, throwing up every day, just completely everything. And I thought everything was fine because I got this far, and to be told that, it was just horrendous. It was just cruel. Like, to pretend it was all fine, but inside it's like it's not real because it's already gone. So we stayed in there for a minute. I had a really big cry, and I came out of the room, and my mum was still smiling, thinking, oh, you know, everything's great, is it? Like, down the corridor. And she was smiling at me, and she would come walking down at me, and she saw my face, and like, I could just see her reaction, and it just broke my heart because I wanted to give her good news. I felt like we both just sank. Like, that's all I could describe it as, because it was such a loss, because I really thought it was going to be it, because we got this far. And into this stupid room again. I didn't walk out with a picture, I didn't walk out with a happy face, I didn't walk out holding hands with my partner thinking, oh, you know, what's the next step? What, do we want a 4D scan? I didn't get any of that. I got a box room, and I got another green slip saying, here, your baby's dead, basically. But the problem was that the baby wasn't coming out, so although I was bleeding, it was only a tiny amount. And obviously I've gone all this time without my body realising that the baby had died. I was at risk of infection and things like that, so I was advised to go for a D&C procedure, which is basically, horrifically as it sounds, a vacuum that sucks out the baby and everything inside the placenta and all of that. It sucks it all out, and you're just left empty, which sounds awful, and it feels awful as well. Anyway, I had to carry the baby for another week before the procedure was due, and that week was, I can't even remember it. I can't even remember that week because I was so numb, and I probably just spent it crying. We went in I had my stuff ready to go for the procedure, and I remember being in the early pregnancy clinic and being brought over to the ward, whatever ward it was that I had to go to. I got changed, I had to take, my tongue bar out and all that sort of stuff, and de-take anything off that I had on. Got in this gown when my bum was out, basically waited on a chair with a few other people that were due to go in for whatever, and we all had to wait our turns. When my turn came around, I was told to go and sit on a hospital bed, and no one could come with me for whatever reason. And I went to go and sit on this hospital bed. I was shaking like a leaf. All I wanted was Reese and my mum with me, and I had to go and sit by myself and overthink and get upset and do all of this on my own. And my mum tried to say, can someone come with me, but they'd said no, so I was just sat there on the edge of the bed shaking. I was then called and I walked down by myself to the delivery suite, which it was just heartbreaking to go to delivery suite to deliver a baby that I wouldn't be going home with. Again, it felt like all of it, like it was a dream, like a joke. Like, is this real? Like, am I really going through all this? Did this really happen? Do I deserve this, really? Like, it just didn't seem fair. It was just awful. And I remember being so scared because I'd never had an operation before. I'd never been put to sleep before. And I just didn't know what the hell was going on. Like, it was still such a shock. Anyway, I was put to sleep, and I remember waking up in recovery, crying and shouting. Not shouting, but I was sort of crying out for the baby. I was saying, I want my baby, where's my baby? Where is it? And I just remember this nurse coming over. She just gave me a hug and just wiped my tears away, because she probably sees all that like 10 times a day. And she was so nice. Like, I just really appreciate it. I just really needed that hug, and she was really kind enough to give it to me. And then obviously up to my pain meds because I was in a lot of pain. And next thing I remember is waking up to my mum and Reese, sort of going in and out of sleep, really. I kept waking up and going back off. And the surgeon came round to see me, and I can't even remember her name. But the surgeon came over and she said that things went well. She said that I bled a lot more than she's dealt with before, but everything apart from that was fine. But yeah, she said, it was fine. Like, that point there was just like, is it fine? Like, I'm not fine, I don't feel fine. And this whole situation isn't fine, so, but obviously you know what she meant, but in my head it was just like, it's not fine. I remember sort of feeling really weak, and I was told to go and get something to eat from dinner a few hours later, and I got up and went to walk, and my legs were sort of giving way, so I had to be carried basically to go and pick my dinner and bring it back to my bed. Had my dinner, and this is where things probably get a little bit humorous. I went to the toilet. Obviously I was in these massive pants with sort of huge granny pads and things, and I was still sort of really weak and just out of it a bit. Went to the toilet, took all this stuff on me, and obviously I was bleeding quite a bit, and I weed on myself. I weed on all over my gown. I didn't pull my gown up, so I just weed all over my nightie, and it was just horrendous. So basically I had to walk back out with it all scrunched up in a ball at the back so no one would see the wetness and all the blood. I went back and closed my curtain and put on another nightie and left the other one on the bed, hoping to God someone would not see the wet and the blood, wrapped up so it looked dry for the laundrette people. But yeah, so that was quite funny. But I went home, so it was just the hardest thing I've ever gone through, and to go through it twice was just like, at the end of it I felt like there was no hope. I had no hope. I just thought this was going to be it. I'm just going to have to keep getting my hopes up, to get them crushed. and I just felt like it wasn't going to happen. And that's really how I felt. I felt like it's not going to happen. And surprisingly, somehow, me and Reese stuck it out, and we decided more than ever that that wasn't going to be it. That wasn't what we were going to let life deal us. And we decided we were going to keep trying, keep going. And don't get me wrong, in between all this, we doubted ourselves a lot. And we said, is it right to carry on? Do we want to carry on trying for a baby? Maybe it's not the right time. And we did have those doubts quite a few times, but we persisted and we decided to keep going. And we got pregnant for a third time. It was just hard. It was the longest 12-13 weeks of my life. Anyway, sitting in the waiting room again with Reese and my mum, we were just all sat there pretty quiet. It was so busy in that waiting room, and I don't think we hardly spoke. We just sort of played games on our phones, tried not to think about it, talk about it. There was no bleeding in the pregnancy, so it was fine in that way. But obviously it doesn't mean anything. It could just get in there and it would be the same as the second pregnancy loss. I'll never forget it, like never. Like to see a different image from what I saw on my last scan to a little head and arms and stumps, and it was just literally the most beautiful picture I've ever seen in my life. I could see her heart beating, I could see her wriggling and moving around, like literally jumping around. And it felt so overwhelmingly amazing. I got some justice after going through everything that I went through. And obviously all throughout the rest of the pregnancy I was still so nervous. It was like she wasn't ever going to be safe until she was in my arm. I'll link my birth story below so you can find out all about that, so go check that out. But it was the most precious moment of my whole life, and all of the pain beforehand, all of the heartache, all of the tears, all of the grief completely got sucked away when that little girl was born, because she was worth it. That's who we were waiting for. That's what was meant to be. And I feel so proud of her, like so proud that I did that I managed to do it. I carried her for 9 months and she was healthy. Like I feel like it isn't easy. People take pregnancy to be so easy, and like they don't see how lucky they are to be able to get pregnant and deliver a baby. Like so many people struggle and have to go through pregnancy loss, and feel like people should be more considerate to people in pregnancy, because you know it doesn't work out for everyone. I feel like people should be cautious about what they do when they're pregnant, because you know they should count their blessings that they're pregnant. They should be counting their blessings that they've got a healthy baby. Yeah, so I just wanted to get my story out there, mainly for me, so I have it as sort of like an outlet, I suppose, because it's still so heavy in my mind. Like I have this big cloud in one section of my mind. It's just a sadness cloud, because I feel like those babies really were my babies and my children. I named them. The first pregnancy was called Pippi. The second one was called Peach. And then we had Penelope, and there's also Pickle, which I'm going to be talking about in a separate video, because I feel like the grief was different before I'd had Penny than after I'd had her, so I want to talk a bit more in depth about that as well. So yeah, thank you very much if you got all the way to the end of this video. If you've had a miscarriage yourself, I hoped it helped you in some way hearing my experience. And if anyone ever wants to message me, then please do. I'll leave my email below. It would just be nice to have a chat and sort of diverse with each other about it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video, guys. Sorry about the cheers.